Low cloud, green countryside and a chill wind. It has to be the beautiful Pyrenees that tower above France and Spain. And it's here where those with thoughts of victory must now prove their qualifications. It's all uphill from Blagnac via the Col d'Aspin and the Col de Tourmalet to Luz-Ardidon. A ride of 215 kilometres, and not surprisingly, Claudio Chiappucci fuels up for a day he knows will be both testing and painful. The first challenge is the Col d'Aspin, the lowest of the day's climbs, and usually a stepping stone of no great difficulty. But today things are different. A small group of riders is ahead, and while the field behind questions the move, even thinking of it as suicide, Chiappucci, the race leader, is acting just like that, a race leader. He sets a tough pace. Chiappucci was not interested in the help of the lesser men who had taken up the challenge with him. For days everyone had talked about this stage and how much time the Italian would lose. No one had expected this, least of all the other Tour hopefuls who kept up a rhythm behind without too much effort yet. Chiappucci, since that first day breakaway, has warmed to the feeling of wearing yellow. If he was going to lose this race, he intended to do so in the finest traditions of the Tour de France. The attack was on, and the decision was now for others to make. Relentlessly, Chiappucci kept the pressure on as he raced through the corridor of people towards the top of the Col d'Aspin. He gives way only for the sprinters to snatch the mountain points. He has a far bigger prize in mind. His lead over the first climb is just 34 seconds as he and his group of 10 begin the race down towards the base of the Col du Tourmalet. Goodness knows what Chiappucci's breakaway companions are thinking, but the yellow jersey now has a lead of over a minute, and the Tour is taking on a new dimension. Greg LeMond, his racing jersey wide open, must be wondering too, what is happening? Surely Chiappucci can't keep up such an attack. And he fights to limit the gains with 2 mountains still to come. The Col de Tourmalet, a brute of a climb that just goes up and up. It's here where LeMond and the other leaders hope that Chiappucci will prove the error of his attack. But at the start of the climb, his lead is up to almost 3 minutes. Claudie Coquillon, the champion of Belgium, is also having a great tour, but there is still no sign of the names expected at the front. On through the mountain resort of La Mongie, and Chiappucci, his group thinning out, is left now with only the Belgian Johan Bruyneel and the Italian Roberto Conti. Neither rider has a chance of winning the Tour de France, but they are both proving to be valuable allies to Chiappucci. Pedro Delgado, riding on the edge of his own country, is being forced to follow rather than lead on his favourite terrain. He relies on teammate Miguel Indurain, while Greg LeMond relies on his teammate Bruno Cornier. The chase seems at last to be beginning, and Spaniard Miguel Martinez Torres avoids the confusion by going ahead of Chiappucci's group by himself. Chiappucci, out in front since the start of the Aspin, still has Bruyneel and 3 other riders for company. But when you are the race leader, you tend to have to do all of the work, while Greg LeMond here and Pedro Delgado rely on their teammates to set the pace. Another huge crowd on the summit of the Tourmalet sees Martinez Torres climbing to a 3-minute advantage. It wasn't quite the name the crowd expected to see, but as many are Spanish here anyway, the nationality is pleasing them. This gives you an idea as to just how steep the final corners of the Tourmalet are, and Torres climbs it very well. The newspaper, by the way, is not for a read on the way down, it's for keeping the cold wind off the chest. The riders continue to climb the mountain, but still there are the top names not evident, just the riders who escaped in the early breakaway with Chiappucci. As so often happens when the champion leads the attack, other riders tend to slip away off the front. So unusually, the top names in this Tour de France were still to pass over the summit. A long, hard road to the top of the Col de Tourmalet. Chiappucci was still riding behind as the leaders go over the top. The yellow jersey, still with Conti, Bruyneel, Régis Simon, reaches the top. Just the descent and then the last climb and the finish to come. Conti outsprints Chiappucci for the banner. Behind, Thierry Claverolas scores well again to consolidate his lead in the King of the Mountains competition. Last year, the Frenchman was forced out of the Tour de France when he crashed while leading in the same competition. More than 2 minutes later, the elite group heads towards the summit, led by Marino Lajareta on the left and the tall Miguel Indurain. Delgado is in the centre and Le Monde tracks the back wheel of Indurain on the right. Others in the group include Fabio Parra from Colombia and Dimitri Konishev, the fast-improving Soviet rider. Indurain is a revelation in this Tour de France. Surely now he must regret having played such an unselfish role in the Alps to help Delgado. The group goes over the top knowing that the chase must be fast and determined if Chiappucci, the brilliant Chiappucci, is to be brought back to heel. Miguel Martinez Torres has no illusions of winning the Tour de France, just a stage. He is far too far behind overall. While Greg LeMond launches the attack on the descent to cut back the lead of Chiappucci, now only just ahead. The chase downhill lasts for more than 20 minutes at speeds of 90 kilometers an hour. The checks indicate, though, that Chiappucci will soon be caught, and so he is. At the base of the final climb, the yellow jersey is caught after an attack that will find a place in the colourful history of the Tour de France. Chiappucci still sits at the front of the reformed field as the final climb begins, but now he has the most feared names alongside him, except that of Eric Breukink, who's had a mechanical problem and a bad day in the Pyrenees. Greg LeMond has chased for most of the day. He has now caught his quarry, the race leader, the Maillot Jaune, and he sits and watches him. The face of Le Monde gives nothing away. It appears he's climbing very well indeed. Chiappucci is trailed by Miguel Indurain, Greg LeMond, Pedro Delgado and Claude Coquillon. Nobody's really interested in the poor old Miguel Torres, who still rides just ahead thinking of a stage win. And nobody wants to help either the Maillot Jaune. Fabio Parra attacks on the right and Greg LeMond is the first to react. Marino Lajareta takes Le Mond's wheel. Conti follows, and soon everybody has moved across the road. There's one man, though, who finds he can't. The yellow jersey of Claudio Chiappucci is falling back. The gamble of the day appears now to have been the biggest mistake of the day. As the group containing Greg LeMond and all of the Tour favourites except Eric Breukink goes clear, Claudio Chiappucci is now having to fight to keep the race lead. The only thing in his favour is the time he holds in hand over the riders going ahead of him. Around a hairpin bend, the Le Mans group rapidly go away. At last, Greg LeMond has got the move he was looking for, a chance to distance the man in yellow. The world champion, who started the season so badly, so out of form, was finding it on the day that mattered most, the road to Les Ardennes. Cathy Lemond watches on television on the peak summit. And what she sees is what she hoped she would see. Her husband Greg driving the pace. Miguel Indurain and Marina Lajereta are the only two riders now who have matched the speed of Greg LeMond. Surprisingly, Pedro Delgado has dropped away. But Delgado hasn't dropped away quite as far as the yellow jersey of Claudio Chiappucci. He still lived in hope that he would lead the Tour by the end of the day. This is Delgado trying desperately now to salvage a few seconds before the finish. He breaks away from Claudio Coquillon and Andy Hampston. But Bruno Cornier finds the strength from somewhere to catch up with Delgado. The mountains should have been the favourite hunting ground for Pedro, as they were when he won the Tour de France back in 1988, but he hasn't produced the same form this year. Greg LeMond was receiving absolutely no help at all from the two Spanish riders, Lajereta and at the back, Miguel Indurain. They had no intention of helping him either. They were searching, in fact, just for the stage win here on the Spanish borders. After all the flags were the Basque variety. LeMond was thinking now in terms of seconds. Every second he gained over the field meant a second closer to the maillot jaune of the Tour de France. And so, with 3 kilometers to go, Lajereta was dropped off the back, while Lajereta's teammate, Miguel Martinez Torres, was finally caught. He'd been off the front. Now there was nobody in front of these two riders. It was purely a matter of which one would win and how much time they would gain over the yellow jersey. Further down the mountain, the yellow jersey was still in serious trouble. Towards the top, Greg LeMond was riding with an inspiration that he'd never shown before in this year's Tour de France. And surely too, Miguel Indurain was badly regretting now waiting for his teammate Pedro Delgado down in the valley road towards the climb of Alpe d'Huez, because had he not lost so much time on that day, he might have been a real challenger now to Greg LeMond and Claudio Chiappucci. Les Ardennes was becoming one of the most famous climbs in the Tour de France, just like Alpe d'Huez did in the last decade. Just look at the people here now. They had come from far and wide. This was a great festive day, but it was above all the day that they thought the Tour de France would be decided. And we'd have to wait for the clock to start counting before anybody could say that. Into the last few kilometers for the two leaders, Claudio Coquillon was trying desperately now to drop even Pedro Delgado, while behind them all was the yellow jersey still toiling and suffering of Chiappucci. No help at all for Greg LeMond. He was having to win this Tour de France purely on his own strength, if indeed he was going to win it. LeMond knew he needed time and needed it on this climb, because tomorrow there is no great climbs on the course. It would leave just one time trial before the finish in Paris. He needed time, and he needed it now over Claudio Chiappucci. He was not concerned about the stage victory, and quite clearly that most certainly was in the mind of Miguel Indurain. who was waiting for his moment. But he didn't fancy water over the back of his neck either. The finish is as high as you can see. There are still a few uphill slopes to come, but you'd never see them through this crowd. And the cheers were still there too for Claudio Chiappucci. For anybody watching it on television all day, they know just what a great ride he put in. The crowd narrowed the road down to just the width of a car, and Greg LeMond picks his way through and never once turns round to ask Indurain for help. To the final bend, and at last Miguel Indurain lines up for the finish. Greg LeMond is grateful for his back wheel, but not for long. Indurain applies the pressure, just enough to crack the world champion. Greg LeMond's pacemaking up the hill had been formidable, but Indurain now was thinking only of the stage victory. It reminded one a little bit of the battle between Greg LeMond and Laurent Fignon a year ago on top of the Col de Peyresourde and Super Bagnères. Then, of course, it was Fignon going clear. This time, it was Indurain. Round the final bend, the finish banner was in sight, and after 7 hours of riding at an incredible average speed of 39 kilometers an hour, the Spaniard Miguel Indurain wins this classic stage. Greg LeMond arrived just 6 seconds behind him. And then the media move in.
C'est le Colombien Sarah, il y a maintenant 1 minute et 7 secondes que Miguel Indurain a franchi la ligne d'arrivée. Voilà Fabio Parra qui termine avec un retard.
Clercq came in as well. Marina Lageretta had finished third. Martinez Torres had taken fourth place. Still no sign, though, of the yellow jersey. Had Greg LeMond taken the race lead? The clock was counting down. Claudio Chiappucci was alone now. He'd been alone for most of the day, really, because nobody had been willing to help him. He sprinted up to the line with the clock still counting down, and when he crossed it, he'd kept his yellow jersey by just 5 seconds.
Non, je me sens très bon.
Greg, you're just 5 seconds behind the jersey. Do you think
Perfect.
you got the jersey now?
It's not one until the time trial, but it looks very good.
Well, you know the time trial. You know the time trial at Lac de Vassivière because you won there in '85.
You lost
the maillot jaune for 5 seconds. You lost the maillot jaune.
Oui, mais
C'est pas grave.
Yeah.
okay.
So, Greg, you know the time trial in Lac de Vassivière. You must feel confident.
I feel very confident. I think I can beat Chiappucci. If I can't, then I don't deserve to win.
5 seconds separating you in the yellow jersey right now, Greg.
I think I'm very confident I can win because I know I'm better than Chiappucci in the time trials. The last one's especially good for me, and I feel totally fresh.
Was your strategy just constant attack at the finish?
Well, I wasn't sure how everybody felt. I tell you, I went into the stage I thought all I had to do was follow Delgado. I thought Delgado would be the one who attacked. But when I saw Chiappucci was gone in the break and nobody responded on the Tourmalet, I said, we're going to let him go. And I said, it's all or nothing. And glad I did it because I think I killed Delgado. He had to come back to me, and we raced a race that was superb with the team.
Did you think the Tour de France might be won today in this stage?
It's won today. It's not over till Champs-Élysées, but if I'm going to win, it's one today, no doubt. I can't say what the percentage, but it's a very, very good percentage that I'm going to maybe win.
Thank you. Thanks.